Hi, and welcome to the Get More Students podcast. I'm your co-host, Alex Asher, CEO of LearnCube.
And I'm Herbert Gozo, founder of Herbert Gozo Digital.
Now, today we were thinking, why don't we talk a little bit about, the people that are behind this, i.e. myself and Herbert, because if you've been listening to us for, we've been going well over a year now, you'll be kind of maybe a little bit more curious about, hey, how did Herbert get to where he was? Maybe Alex as well. But for today, we're really going to focus on your story, Herbert, because I think it's a really fascinating one. And I think it hopefully provides not only build some relationships and with our current listeners, but I think also a lot of people would really resonate with your story.
Yeah, I hope so. And great to get to know our audience a bit better through, these stories like this.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna bring up some questions, or at least a bit of a framework, and then we can kind of go through that over time. But I'm really interested in how you built your business. It is why don't we start with the end in mind? So tell us a little bit about your business now, what it looks like, and then we can kind of talk about what it used to look like and how you got there.
Absolutely. So I run a digital advertising agency, and we specialize in paid advertising campaigns specifically for language schools and education businesses to generate more leads and enrollments for their courses and programs. And we've been around for 3.5 years. We are now a team of 6. And we have the privilege of working with some amazing education companies and schools around the world.
That is quite an achievement regardless. I think as soon as you're over a team of 1, a lot of things are a massive improvement. But what I really love about that as well is you've been able to build a team, which, is the sense of a business that's outside of yourself. And we're going to dig into how you built that and kind of maybe what has also really jumped your business up a few levels in more recent years. Sure. Let's then go back to where you were. Perhaps let's start, I think 3.5 years ago you started the business?
Exactly.
Why don't we start there, and then we'll also look even further back into your story.
So, I've been in the language training industry for quite a while now. And, 3.5 years ago, I was working at a language school. I was in sales and also had a position as a manager of training and development. I knew quite a few aspects, sides of the language school business. And that language school needed some help promoting their English camps, summer English camps, and just their language courses in general. And they were trying to find new ways of reaching audiences. And I had previously had some experience running Facebook and Instagram ads. We might get that. We might go back to that a bit later. And so I raised my hand. I volunteered to help them out with their online marketing, and it worked. And I really enjoyed that part of the business, and really found that through my research that a lot of language schools and education businesses struggle with this digital marketing, online marketing side of things. And so that's when I decided, hey, it might be wise to start a digital advertising agency to help those businesses.
So it sounds like you already started fairly quickly on this idea of a niche rather than necessarily becoming a digital marketer, because that's the alternative, right? You could have said, hey, I'm going to just be a Facebook consultant or a marketing consultant. What made you think that you wanted to stay involved in the sector?
Because I wanted to play on my strengths, and having been in the industry for so long, I kind of knew the ins and outs of the business. Mm-hmm. And I thought that I would have an easier time than speaking to potential customers, because I spoke their language and I understood kind of all of the challenges that they go through every day as a language school. So that's what that was my thought. Instead of branching into a completely new industry or field, to really double down on what I already know.
And I guess you already had a somewhat of a network to be able to build from. When you looked at how did you assess the competition at that particular moment, or even the need?
I did a lot of research. There really aren't that many players in this industry when it comes to kind of digital marketing agencies that service language schools and education businesses. Really like single digits, or at least back then it was. And so I was like, okay, this isn't a flooded or saturated market. And I did see the potential, because doing my research, Googling large schools and seeing what type of advertising they're doing online, it was zero, at the time. Wow. I was like, okay, why aren't they doing any online advertising? This would be a great new acquisition channel for them, in addition to their other more traditional channels. So I saw the opportunity there.
And what were the kind of initial? Do you remember any conversations where you had, you talked to these language school owners and they were like, why would we be interested in what you have to offer? Like, tell me about those stories of maybe being kicked in the teeth a few times.
Oh gosh, yes. The first many calls with language schools were very difficult. So I mean, this wasn't even that long ago. So what are we talking about? Like mid 2018 thing, end of 2018, and people were just very, very, very skeptical. And even today, it's still a hard sell, because a lot of these schools have tried either agencies or freelance marketers before with little to no success, or they've tried doing online advertising themselves through Facebook, Instagram, Google, etc., and they have spent a lot of money and gotten little results. So it was quite tough at the beginning to convince that first customer to have faith in me and my process.
Interesting as well. How long does it often take before somebody starts seeing, let's call them, results?
I mean, it really depends on the business. For schools that are already established, they have a product they know is popular and resonates with the market, then it's obviously much easier. Of course, there are other factors to this. We always talk about how important the website is, and organic presence on social media. All of these things kind of factor into the success of paid ad campaigns. But when a school has all of those things, then within the first kind of 6 to 8 weeks, we can really see some good results.
So do you already though, it's not quite the same as language. Like, it takes a lot longer even in language to kind of get results potentially, because there is that time in there. But I thought there might be some similarities, but still there's like this leap of faith where things are happening. You're not seeing immediate results necessarily, and you've got to keep your clients kind of on board. How do you do that well? And is there maybe are there some lessons there that could be applicable to anyone listening to their own businesses?
Absolutely. Expectation management is huge. I mean, always, you want to set goals, great goals, realistic goals, and try to over deliver, right? And there's nothing worse than promising the world and then coming up short. And so being realistic with what you've got and taking all of those factors into consideration, working out a plan that works for both parties, and then just communication is so important. And we love to have weekly communication with our clients, and so in order to get feedback in real time.
I think that point on expectation management is something that's useful for you, but I think it would be useful for anybody. what are the resources that you've created that help your clients, for example, feel like they're on track with whatever their process is? Because otherwise it's like going off a cliff. You're just kind of hoping something happens. Whereas it sounds like you're kind of providing the stepping stones of what people can expect, so people don't, feel uncomfortable being there.
Sure. First impressions are so important. So the onboarding of clients is extremely crucial, and you want to make that a seamless and easy experience for them. So them giving you all of the data you need in order for us to create the ad copy, to create the assets for the campaigns, and also show them kind of what the plan is, what the key milestones are, and what they can expect in the next 2, 3, 4 months with working with us. And so they know from the get-go, okay, this is what we need to do as a client. This is what, our agency is going to do in the background. And these are the next steps. And also having a dashboard or a place to house all of the data, which clients can access all the time, with all of the KPIs, how much they're spending, the conversions, etc.
So I think that idea of a dashboard is really helpful. So are you doing that in a specific tool that you have that can kind of pull all of that data for them?
Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of tools, but we use Google Data Studio with another plugin called Supermetrics, which collates all of the data from the different ad platforms into one lovely, easy to read dashboard.
That sounds great. I think it also, again, it's like giving me inspiration. Like, okay, how can I apply that for our business? Very cool. So I think it's really clear, like some of the key kind of ideas of how you built that business, the things that are important. You talked about onboarding being really crucial. Let's go back into your story a little bit. We sort of went to the 3.5 year mark. Take me a little bit further back to, did you see yourself as an entrepreneur much earlier on, or was this something that was more of a newer phenomenon?
No, I always wanted to start my own business. I always wanted to have that freedom, so to say. And I had dabbled with other businesses in the past. I guess the biggest one was probably about 7 years ago. With a business partner, we decided to launch a sneaker label.
Wow.
Of all things, something completely different. We were both interested in fashion. And at that time, like the sneaker trend was just going off. And so we thought we'd capitalize on that and came up with this amazing kind of extraordinary sneaker design, a high price sneaker. The thing is, both of us had zero experience in the fashion industry. And we were starting from scratch with no knowledge, no connections, nothing. And it was a hard, challenging road, a very expensive one, where a lot of mistakes were made. And there are just so many moving parts when it comes to building a product like this. You're speaking to the designers who actually sketch out the shoe, and then the hardware, which we had, that was our kind of a USP, the hardware on the shoe. There was a buckle on the shoe. And then the logistics from the sole maker to the leather manufacturers to the shoelace manufacturers, and combining all of those and getting everyone to work together was probably an MBA. I say it's, I went through an MBA in that, 1.5 years of trying to launch that sneaker label. And it was an eye-opening experience. Let's say that much.
And you must, that sounds like probably one of your biggest learnings. And the fact that you're here now very successfully, but the fact that you're not part of a sneaker brand tells me, what was the end result for that?
Well, were not successful launching the brand. We launched it, but in terms of actually selling the shoes, we struggled. With website, with suppliers, with logistics, and so we had to make the painful decision to stop it after spending a lot of money on this. And making so many mistakes. I could tell you, we something that I would never do today. We spent like 12,000 euros on a photo shoot for this campaign, when we could have probably done it ourselves with, just or hired a photographer. Anyway, mistakes like those. And so we decided to shut down the business and sell everything off. And after that, I was a bit, I guess, scared about starting a new business, as you would be after kind of losing, a lot of time and money. And so that's when I went back into the language school business, and I worked for about, a year. And then that's when I came up with the idea of the agency, and decided at the time to start the agency while I was working full time, until I reached a point where I said, okay, now it makes sense to go all in, 100% into the agency.
Did you what do you call it? Have steps to get to full time, or did you go full time once you'd sort of made that decision?
It took about 6 months. So okay. I started the agency, and then 6 months later, I got to a point where, all right, I can do this full time, and yeah.
Amazing. Are there any other kind of learnings? You kind of mentioned the photo shoot, but is there something? I think there's some universal truths out of your experience. Do you want to kind of maybe suggest what some of those were? Overspending on certain things that maybe weren't important. For me, was that takeaway. But do you have anything else that you'd kind of bring up?
Definitely keeping your budget in mind, and the fantastic thing, I guess, with this agency is it required such little capital investment, and that's what I was really looking for after doing the complete opposite, and I guess. Research. We did not test the market before we launched the product. We were like, okay, this is our idea is so fantastic. Everyone's going to love it. We're just going to go with it, produce it, and people will buy. And so finding your proof of concept first by coming up with a MVP model, or doing a little test, doing market research, asking your target audience, what they want, what their needs are. We failed to do that, and we thought that because sneakers were so hyped up at the time, that people would just buy it. So that was a major failure as well.
I find it really interesting, particularly I've seen the way that you work as well, and this idea of testing and MVPs is something that's quite core to what you offer now, and now it kind of makes sense as well, as like when you've had some hard knocks, you learn those pretty quickly. Are there any other kind of what was your attitude to risk maybe before and afterwards?
Before, I was very risk tolerant, extremely risk tolerant. That was a huge risk. Obviously, after closing down the sneaker label, my risk appetite was like zero. And so I kind of had to work my way back up to accepting more risk, which again took about a year to get over that. But now, I would say I'm probably not back to where I used to be, but I'd say my risk appetite is quite high again.
But also, this business that you're in now also probably you mentioned it wasn't easy to begin with. To get the wheels in motion takes a lot of hard effort. So what kept you motivated during those tough times? Is there anything that you can share that would be applicable also to others that are maybe there's not a shortage of people that have had some tough times. There's also some people that have had some great times in the last couple of years, but at one point or another, you're going to hit some tough times. What's got you through?
Not being alone, and not just going about it by yourself, which I used to be. I used to always do everything myself. I didn't like to delegate. I thought I could go it alone. I didn't need anyone else to be successful. I'm not saying you can't be successful on your own, but it is much easier with people around you. And so what I had was accountability partners, so people also in the same kind of space as me, other agency owners who I could talk to and share ideas, get some feedback on, what I'm doing in the business. That was a huge thing for me, so that I knew that I wasn't alone. That my problems were also the problems of other people, and, finding out how they solve them and, came up with solutions was extremely important.
Is that sort of like a mastermind group? Like, were these people that also had agencies in language education, or they had agencies but not in language education?
The latter.
Got it. Yeah. So that makes some sense. The reason I sort of pause on that for a moment is I think in the education space, there's a lot of really goodwill and people willing to collaborate, but I don't think you can't really gloss over the fact that there is also this sense of competition. And so is there anything that you'd recommend for education companies in terms of finding support, and maybe really honest support, either in or outside of education? Which I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that one.
I mean, I would recommend, joining non-industry groups, again, to get a different perspective, a different angle on things. So other people in other businesses, other industries, connecting with them. And, there are great places to do that these days online, whether that be Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups, or there are some entrepreneur groups where you can join and meet online, or even have live meetups. So I would highly recommend that.
You've kind of indicated, some tough times as well. What's your greatest fear, and how did you get over that fear when it comes to starting a business, maybe, or building a business?
My greatest fear was that I guess no one would buy from me. No one would believe or trust in what I was selling. So I made sure to, especially in this industry, to make connections, strategic partnerships like our partnership, Alex, and also to get my name out there and be on other people's stages. Like, we have webinars. I'm on a lot of, I'm at a lot of conferences. I speak a lot at other events. I think that that really solidifies kind of your image and reputation within this very small niche that we are in. So that's been very useful.
And how has being an entrepreneur sort of affected your life, maybe your identity, or even your family life?
I mean, I love it. I couldn't think of anything better, because I now have, time, location freedom, which is something I always wanted. I love traveling, and so I can take my work with me when I travel. And now having a team to support me, or to support our business, is even better.
Do you have any tips with? I'll talk about tips with building a team, but I think going from 0 to 1, you going from nothing to a startup is one kind of aspect, but also that 1 to your first employee or team member. Do you remember that? And if you do, what do you feel is really important about that first hire?
Right. It is. I'll tell you that the first hire is no longer with us. I don't think you get it right on your first hire.
Yeah.
But I would say, looking back, it's got to be a culture fit. Out of anything, it has to be culture. And if you can work with that person and they're friendly, you can have fun, because everything else, I mean, if they are motivated, if they're proactive, if they're willing to learn, then to me that is better than having 2 more years experience. So I was hell-bent on getting, the most experienced person at the start, and it didn't work out. It just didn't, because personalities clashed. And so now when I'm hiring, it has to be a culture fit first.
So that means do you have any clear idea? I'll look at your own culture, but I think, can you kind of pull out, how do you build a culture, and how do you think about that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it is, you have to live the culture, right? It kind of comes from you show the way forward, and you give the guidelines and the boundaries of that culture. So you really have to be able to live it, because your team members will replicate kind of what you give forth. And so it's got to be authentic. It's got to come from you. It can't be something that's put on. Yeah,
I really agree with that. You can't fake that culture, because your culture is like it's your default, which means that no matter what, you're going to get back to that at one point or another. Particularly when things get a bit tougher, that's when you go back to that kind of tortoise shell.
Yeah.
And that tortoise shell is going to be whatever your kind of culture is. So that really resonates to me, and I'm sure that people listening in would have the same. I'm going to ask then, one thing that I think is kind of overlooked, and the good thing is you've got a kind of counter experience with your sneaker business. When do you cut your losses? When is it, when is tough times, it's not worth pursuing? Well, where are you at with that?
Oh, that was so difficult. It's probably the most difficult decision I've had to make, because we invested so much time, so many resources into just launching the brand, and it just wasn't working out. We had tried so many different things: marketing, connecting with people, magazines, and we just weren't getting anywhere. And our motivation was also lacking, of course. It was decreasing as time went on, and we just had to cut our losses. And for me personally, I was like, okay, I'm just going to put this down as a learning experience, an expensive learning experience, but I've learned a lot from my mistakes, and I need to move forward.
Yeah.
Because I don't see that there was a future with that business, and my heart wasn't in it anymore. And if my heart is not in something, then I know that's when I have to stop.
Yeah, it makes it very hard when things are hard to keep going if you just don't feel that you've got that same motivation. It seems also, though, the opposite has also been true. When you've gone back to your roots in a way with language education, this is not, you've been in language education for how many years now, Herbert?
I started off as a teacher back in 2008.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really core part of your identity as well, as sort of being in this space. And I think it's, from what I've gathered, that was a much more authentic kind of place for you to be and to start than maybe in the sneaker business. Very interesting. I'm going to finish with a question just around, what is your proudest moment to date?
What is my proudest moment? I love getting up on stage and speaking to audiences and imparting some knowledge. And I just love helping people and businesses, with this topic on marketing, because I know there is quite a lack of knowledge, and I love being able to share that with as many people as possible, but also being able to work with kind of some industry leaders. We had the privilege of doing the first digital campaigns for International House World Organization.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing. And some other amazing language schools. So yeah, it's been a great milestone as well.
How amazing. Well, I'm definitely keen to follow your journey with you, Herbert. I'm really proud to be working with you and alongside
Thanks,
you.
Alex.
We'll obviously keep chatting, but the people listening in, if you want to know a little bit more about Herbert, where are they going to find you and find a bit more information about your story?
Sure. On our website, herbertgerzer.com.
Got it. herbertgerzer.com. And also, I'm sure people can find you on your LinkedIn. But
sure.
Herbert, this has been an absolute pleasure to learn actually a bit more behind the scenes
Very much so.
of your business. And again, I've learned a lot, and you're a real inspiration. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Alex.